Oh, wow. 1-800-449-8255. And you're on the Clark the Shark Show, baby. Whoever you are, you just stumbled upon the most crystallized, synchronized, intelligent, intellectual sharky that you will ever find on the internet at 1-800-449-8255. The Clark the Shark Show, the Wolfman Jack on crack. The man with the golden voice coming to you live from the golden EIB Sharkraphone. And I'm bringing you an album from late 1975. The final RCA album by the Kinks and Ray Davies, Schoolboys in Disgrace. And of course, this album has this amazing, funny album cover. And people think it's AC/DC, like that's Angus Young. They don't know this is really by the Kinks. But actually, come on, everybody knows this amazing album. And sadly, RCA would either drop the Kinks or, maybe the Kinks would quit or something. But in 1976, there was no Kinks album. Somehow the Kinks hooked up with Clive Davis, of all people, over at Arista Records, and they would release the amazing 1977 album. Oh, and what an album. I just reviewed it yesterday, man. So killer. Sleepwalker. I love that album. But this album, I might even love it more. Now, this album, Schoolboys in Disgrace, on RCA Records, this album is nothing like those other Kinks RCA albums, which are all great, but they're totally different from this album. Of course, Preservation Act 1 and 2, 1973 and 74, respectively, are a couple of great albums. And then, the one where Ray switches places with the ordinary people, the guy Norman, for Star Maker, soap opera, which is one of my favorite Kinks albums because it's just so retarded and silly. It's so funny. A lot of people hate it, the same way they hate The Who, Tommy, and they think it's silly, and they got so much better later on when they were older and more mature. Well, I accept albums as they go, and warts and all, the funny bone stuff, like, if you're trying to be funny like Frank Zappa or whatever, I can dig it on the Clark the Shark Show at 1-800-449-8255. The Wolfman Jack on crack. He loves everything Ray Davies does. And Schoolboys in Disgrace, this 1975 album, the second album the Kinks would release with RCA. And look at that, somebody gave it a 2 in 1975. Of course, the early 1975 one was Soap Opera, which I love. I love that album. But of course, I love this green album by the Kinks, Schoolboys in Disgrace. I love it even more because it's one of the greatest Kinks albums. But who gave it a 2? Who gave it a 3 and a C+? I mean, this is a 5-star album for sure. And of course, School Days were the happiest days of our lives. Of course, by Ray the Genius. School Days. Great song, man. I love it. You know what? Who gave that a bad rating? School Days is awesome. And of course, the hilarious Frank Zappa styled Jack Jack the Idiot Duds is awesome and funny. Killer song, man. A couple of killer songs open up this funny, irreverent, silly album, but it's so good. And Education has to be one of the greatest ever Kinks songs. It's just awesome. It's almost a rewrite of He's Evil from Preservation Act 2. It's got the same little progression in it, but it's killer, man. Education is so awesome, and it's a long song. It's like 7:07 length. And it's It's rock and roll, album oriented rock. It's great. Education, I love it. And of course, the first time we fall in love is, the first time we fall in love. Killer, killer, killer song. I love side one of Schoolboys in Disgrace, 1975. It's great Ray Davies stuff. I mean, if just for education alone, a killer rocking hard rock song. And it's just, it ends like a dynamic little rock opera. 707, man, education. Really melodic. It's great. Is it a rewrite of He's Evil? Kinda, kinda. It's got that little progression, but I love it. And of course, side two, we get into just greatness with the Kinks. I'm a Disgrace. Fucking killer, man. It's like proto punk. This is 1975, and of course, punk would start to come out 76, 77. And all those bands loved I'm in Disgrace. It's fucking killer by Ray Davies. But if there's a killer, unbelievable, dynamic song on this album, it's track number 2 on side 2, Headmaster. One of the greatest songs ever by Ray Davies and the Kinks. Just a hard rocking. It's like FM AOR, album oriented rock classic. Hard rocking, great song. Headmaster. Oh man, you talk about great Kinks. It's Headmaster. Great song. And of course, The Hard Way is a famous, well-known Kinks song that they play a lot live. Great song, man. I love The Hard Way. The version on One for the Road is just, all right. I actually like the album version here a lot. The Hard Way is killer. And The Last Assembly is killer, man. I love it, It's, kind of some people think, I don't know, they're just like, it's one of those songs kind of like The First Time We Fall in Love or School Days or, one of those songs that could have been off Preservation Act 2 or something like that. I love The Last Assembly. Killer song, killer song. Great lyrics. Of course, all Ray Davies songs have great lyrics. And of course, the classic No More Looking Back. One of the greatest Kinks songs ever. You gotta buy this album, man. Whoever you are out there listening to Clark the Shark right now. Just for this song alone on side 2 of this unbelievably great album, No More Looking Back, is just a 1970s killer Ray Davies. Killer, man. I love No More Looking Back. One of the greatest songs ever by the Kinks. But I can say that about 5 of these songs on this album, maybe 6, maybe the whole album is just fucking awesome. And then, finale. Killer way to end the album, man. Killer. If I gave this album a 1 out of 10, it's a 12. It's a 10-star, baby. This album is one of the greatest Kinks albums. And it's kind of weird because you don't really expect that on the RCA collection of the Kinks. Although to Clark the Shark, I think, me personally, I think all the Kinks albums, the Green album in 72, the Yellow album in 73, and of course Preservation Act 2, the Purple album in 74, they're all awesome, man. And the one with Norman Starmaker, the soap opera is just funny. Great songs all over it, great melodies. But this song is almost like an Arista. This album, Schoolboys in Disgrace. This album just rocks so hard and so fucking killer. It's almost like Clive Davis and Arista Records looked at this album, and said, we're going to sign the Kinks just because of this fucking amazing album. 1975, Schoolboys in Disgrace by Ray Davies and the Kinks. And, the guy on this album right there that's beating the little boy with the stick, the headmaster, he's actually I can't remember if he's Mr. Flash or Mr. Black from Preservation 1 and 2, the Village Green, Preservation, and then Preservation 1, Act 1 and 2. But I think it's Mr. Black or Mr. Flash, and he's beating a little child on the cover of Schoolboys in Disgrace in 1985. It's not Angus Young, it's not AC/DC, it's the Kinks with one of their greatest, most fab albums. I love Schoolboys in Disgrace. If I was to compare this album to Sleepwalker, 1977, they don't compare. They're totally different. It's apples to oranges to mangoes to strawberries to snozberries, like you're on Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, the snozberries, like that little girl, Veruca Salt. But Schoolboys in Disgrace is so amazing. I love this Kinks album. I love it more than those other RCA albums. And you could tell Ray Davies is like, we're leaving RCA and we're going to audition for a new record label, maybe Warner Brothers or EMI, or, maybe Tommy Mottola and Sony, or CBS or ABC Dunhill. But of course, Clive Davis, would come along. He loves the Kinks. He's such a big Kinks fan. And he signed the Kinks to Arista Records, and they put out Sleepwalker, and then all those incredible albums on Arista with Clive Davis. Man, I don't really like Clive Davis personally. I think he's a bean counter, and he's always trying to pay you 1% of mils. He breaks it down in mils. We haven't seen the mill since 1893, but Clive Davis will break down a penny into a mill. 1/10 of 1% of a penny, and he'll pay you a royalty based on a mill. You get a mechanical royalty for Arista in mills, And now today, you fucking try to sell your own music online at iTunes or Spotify or Amazon, and they're paying you mills, like 1/10 of a penny. And it's probably because of guys like Clive Davis at Arista. He probably invented it. And that's why Whitney Houston had no money, and she couldn't even buy crack at 1-800-449-8255 because of guys like Clive Davis paying you mills of a penny. I just wish these record labels would pay people so they don't have to tour themselves to death at 1-800-449-8255 on the Clark the Shark, the fabulous Clark the Shark show, where I'm coming to you people from the golden EIB Sharkraphone. That's right, Clark the Shark at 1-800-449-8255, and I just gave you the most accurate, amazing review. In fact, the only review you will ever need from anybody on YouTube. Don't listen to those other reviewers. You just come to Clark the Shark from the golden EIB Sharkraphone, and I'm going to tell you about all of the Ray Davies, Raymond Douglas Davis, and the Kinks. I'm going to tell you about all their albums accurately, exactly as you need to know. I'm going to tell you when they rock and when they don't. I'm going to tell you about Ray Davies because I grew up in Redondo Beach, Torrance, and the South Bay, Los Angeles, listening to the Kinks, Raymond Douglas Davis, all me life. I love Ray Davies and the Kinks. Clark the Shark loves this genius poet who gave us Schoolboys in Disgrace in 1975, the final album on RCA Records. And RCA had Elvis, and they also had Harry Nilsson, who I love. A bunch of great things on RCA Records, but sadly, this would be the last album for Ray Davies and RCA. And of course, in 1970, 71, RCA paid the Kinks $1 million up front. And then they built KINKS Studios over in England. Ray and the boys built KINKS. So always remember that, man. A lot of bands record at KINKS over in England. Great studio, man. And the Kinks, of course, made great albums at KINKS. At 1-800-449-8255, the Clark the Shark Show, the Wolfman Jack on crack, where I'm coming to you from the golden EIB Sharkraphone. That's right. Clark the Shark, the world's greatest Sharky. Telling you about Schoolboys in Disgrace 1975. I want you to go buy this album at iTunes, Spotify, Amazon Music, and I want you to buy all the Kinks and Ray Davies. you can possibly buy. And don't do it because any other reviewer on YouTube told you to. You do it because Clark the Shark told you on the Clark the Shark Show. You just got the word, the most accurate review and the only review you will ever need from the Sharky. And I'm out of here, people. Peace.